All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be stepping pretty far away from our usual topics. We're moving into a really high-stakes, real-world mystery. And it's hidden inside, of all places, the world of English national hunt racing.
Yeah, and this isn't theory or speculation. What we have here are, well, they're basically case files. Personal notes from a deep cover operation.
It's incredible stuff. We're calling it the case of the undetectable dope.
And our mission for this deep dive is to really break down how this one man, Daniel Roke, an Australian stud owner of all things, managed to dismantle this incredibly sophisticated criminal ring.
A ring that had, completely baffled Scotland Yard, vets, professional stewards, everyone, for over a year.
And you'll see as we unpack this, the key wasn't in a test tube, it was psychological.
Okay, so let's set the stage. What was the initial crisis? Because the sources make it sound terrifying. Not just for the sport, but for an entire industry.
It was, and the problem was it was both incredibly obvious and completely untouchable.
How so?
Well, about a year before Roke gets involved, horses start winning races in a way that just wasn't right. They were frantic, overstimulated.
There are some pretty vivid descriptions in the files, aren't there?
Oh, yeah. We have records describing a winning horse as, quote, frothing at the mouth with his eyes popping out and his body drenched in sweat.
So clearly doped.
Absolutely. To any experienced horseman, it looked like a massive stimulant overdose. These horses were pushed way beyond their natural limits.
And yet, and this is the core of the mystery, the tests all came back clean.
Every single one. And they were testing constantly. The top 4 finishers in a lot of these key races, saliva, urine, the whole 9 yards.
And nothing.
Zero. Not a trace of any known substance. And that's the impossible paradox, right? The doping was obvious to the naked eye, but the evidence was completely invisible to science.
The vets must have been losing their minds.
The notes say they were aghast. Their entire professional understanding was that, and this is another quote, there isn't a dope they can't identify.
So this new reality, this invisible stimulant it was?
It was basically blasphemous to them. It shouldn't have been possible.
So we're not just talking about, some fixed bets.
Yeah.
This is a threat to the entire foundation of the sport.
It's existential. That's how Lord October sees it.
Yeah.
He's an earl, a very powerful steward in the racing world, and he's the one who ultimately brings in Roke.
What did he say was at stake?
He says that if this trend continues, public faith will be destroyed altogether. And you have to think about the ecosystem around horse racing in Britain.
Right. It's huge.
It's a massive institution. It employs thousands of people, stables, vets, all the associated industries. Lord October was afraid the damage would be irreparable. It would take decades to rebuild that trust.
So this wasn't a job for the police. They needed someone different.
They needed an infiltrator, someone who could get inside.
Which brings us to Daniel Roke. I find this part fascinating. Lord October, this English aristocrat, flies all the way to a stud farm in Australia. But Roke wasn't even the guy he was looking for initially, was he?
No, not at all. It's a crucial detail. October originally went there to find one of Roke's employees, an old stable hand named Arthur Simmons.
Why him?
The thinking was, he was an old English hand. He could slip back into the stable environment and nobody would notice. He'd just blend in.
But Roke shut that down immediately.
Instantly. He was very pragmatic about it. He just said he just hasn't the brain for anything like that. End of story.
And as he's saying this, October is looking at Roke himself. And what does he see?
He sees a complete contradiction. Roke is walking across his paddock and he looks like a hired hand. The notes describe him as very tattered and half bare and looking like a gypsy.
So on the surface, just a rough worker.
Exactly. But October is shrewd. He hears the educated mind underneath the rough exterior, and he picks up on the accent, which he notes is as near to Cockney as damn it.
And that's the light bulb moment.
That's it. He realizes Roke is the perfect infiltrator. He has the physical presence of a stable lad, but the analytical mind of, well, a CEO.
This contrast, the ability to be a chameleon, is what October knew he could use.
Absolutely. Because when Roke goes inside and changes, he comes back wearing a silk tie and good trousers, and he's instantly transformed into this polished, successful man.
He understood the power of camouflage.
He even says it to himself, "Clothes maketh man." He got it. He knew that to succeed, he had to become someone the racing world would look at and immediately dismiss.
Okay, let's talk about the deal. Because the money they offer him really underscores the level of danger we're talking about.
The money is key to the whole story. October offers him 20,000 English pounds.
Which, for the time, is just a colossal amount of money.
It's life-altering, and it was very specifically targeted at Roke's biggest psychological vulnerability.
His family.
His younger siblings. October had done his homework. He knew Roke had spent the last 9 years of his life working to support them, and that 20,000 pounds was almost the exact amount needed to pay for all their education fees.
Belinda for medical school, Helen for art school.
And Philip for law prep, the whole thing. October was essentially framing the deal not as a payment for a job, but as the price of Roke's freedom.
He was literally buying Roke out of what Roke saw as his own prison.
That's the genius of the recruitment. It wasn't about greed, it was about liberation. But Roke was no fool. He knew that kind of money meant serious risk.
Which is why he insisted on the life insurance.
He had his solicitors draw up a very dryly worded legal contract, and life insurance was a non-negotiable clause.
And the fact that October had trouble getting that policy says everything.
It does. The notes say he found it difficult, even troubling to secure. This wasn't a standard policy for a hazardous job. This was an admission that the people Roke was going after were killers.
And that's when Roke starts thinking of the money differently.
Yeah. He starts seeing it less as a reward and more as the steward's conscience money. They were paying him for the very high probability that he wouldn't be coming back.
So the stage is set. But before we get into the operation, we really need to understand the man himself, Daniel Roke.
Roke is just this fascinating character study in self-control and bottled-up ambition.
On the one hand, he's incredibly successful. He runs this big stud farm in Australia, and the descriptions of it are beautiful.
They are. Neat, white-railed paddocks, a big blue-green lagoon, snow-capped mountains in the background. By any objective measure, it's paradise.
But to him, it's a prison.
Exactly. His parents died when he was young, leaving him to raise his siblings. So for 9 years, it's just been what he calls unending labor to secure their future.
And in the process, he had to give up his own passion, which was steeplechasing.
Yeah, a bad fall and a broken leg at 22 ended his racing career. So he had to find safer work. And for years, he successfully suppressed what the notes call a fierce, aching desperation to be free.
Free to take risks again.
Free to live a life of challenge, not just spreadsheets and managing a farm. The moment October made that offer, Roke saw the cage door finally swinging open.
And that desperation is what fuels the creation of his cover identity. This isn't just putting on some old clothes. He's engineering a whole persona.
Every single detail is calculated. He grows the dark stubble and sideburns to look untrustworthy.
The uniform is deliberate, too.
The black leather jacket, the pointed shoes, the knitted cap. It's the uniform of a delinquent. October even notes that the jacket completes what sideburns begin.
And the accent. He consciously works on making it sound more cockney.
He spends hours on it, dropping his H's, changing vowel sounds. He needed to sound like the lowest common denominator, the kind of vaguely disreputable, stable lad you'd see 100 of and never remember.
It's interesting that he aimed for almost dangerous rather than just, invisible. Why dangerous?
Well, I think the idea was that a hint of danger makes you unpredictable. People keep their distance. They don't ask questions about your past. They just assume you're a bit shifty, and that's that.
And he knew it was working because of the reaction from October's manservant, Terrence.
Yes, Terrence is the perfect litmus test. He's a master at reading people. And his first impression of Roke in his cover is, I wouldn't trust you as far as I could throw that wardrobe.
He pegs him as a delinquent immediately.
Right. But then Roke adjusts, makes himself look a bit sloppier, and Terrence revises his assessment. He says Roke now looks more ordinary. Not much more honest, but less hard to handle.
And that was the sweet spot.
That was it. Not a threat, just another piece of the scenery.
So he has the cover. Now he has to get smarter than all the professionals who failed before him. His first 2 days in England are just him, in a room, with 3 massive files of notes.
It was a data dump designed to overwhelm. 237 typewritten pages.
Well, listen there.
Everything. Interviews with jockeys, vet reports, market analysis, private detective notes. He had to absorb every single dead end they'd already hit.
And what were the main dead ends? Where had they failed to find a link?
They were looking for the usual things, money and chemistry.
Okay.
But there was no betting syndicate to trace. The criminals were using the tote, which is anonymous, so you can't track the winnings.
And no link between the horses themselves.
None. No single owner, trainer, or even a common type of horse food. The data was just a big, unconnected mess. Roke's own notes say he finished those 2 days just staring at the carpet without a helpful idea in my head.
He had basically just confirmed that all the traditional methods had failed.
Precisely. which is when his real genius kicks in. He stops looking at the problem like everyone else did. He throws out the chemistry and the economics.
And he looks at geography.
This is the moment he earns his money. He stops focusing on the horses and starts focusing on the places. The 5 specific race courses where these doped horses won: Kelso, Haydock, Sedgefield, Stafford, and Ludlow.
And he finds a common denominator, not in the region, but in the actual architecture of the track.
Exactly. It's a stunning piece of analysis. He realizes every single one of those 5 courses has a very long run-in.
A long run.
Yeah, a long straight stretch of track about 1/4 of a mile from the very last fence to the winning post.
And that was his first real breakthrough.
A huge, irrefutable breakthrough. It was a structural pattern that all the chemical tests in the world would never have found.
Okay, let's dig into that. Why is a 1/4 mile run-in so important? What does that tell him about the nature of the dope?
It tells him that the effect has to be sudden, overwhelming, and very short-lived.
Right.
Think about it. If you give a horse a massive stimulant too early, say a mile out from the finish, it'll either burn itself out or, worse, it might crash over a fence because it's uncontrollable.
And if the run-in is too short?
There's not enough time to overtake the other horses. That 1/4 mile stretch is the perfect window. It's just enough time for a frantic, panic-fueled sprint to the finish line.
So the mechanism has to be something that can be triggered at a precise moment.
Exactly, at the final fence. And it has to be something that's mostly worn off by the time the horse gets to the testing bay. Immediate, fierce, and temporary.
So with that pattern established, he goes back to the horse histories. And now, suddenly, names start to emerge from the data.
Right, because now he knows what he's looking for. He's not looking for a long-term owner. He's looking for a temporary connection, a place where these horses might have been prepared before being sold on.
And he finds 2 names.
Paul J. Adams and Hedley Humber.
Adams was an owner.
He had owned 6, and Roke later confirms a 7th of the doped horses at some point in their careers.
And Humber was a trainer.
Yes. 3 of the horses had passed through his yard for a brief period, and this is why everyone else missed it. The connection was distant. These were, moderate, unrewarding animals that got sold on pretty frequently.
The criminals were conditioning them and then selling them to unsuspecting new owners.
Exactly. And the geographic link was the final confirmation. Adams lived less than 10 miles from Humber's stable. The conspiracy was small and local, but its effects were nationwide.
Before he can go in, Roke has another realization. A much darker one, about the death of a racing journalist named Tommy Stapleton.
Yeah, he starts piecing together the symptoms, the terror, the panic in the horses, and he re-examines Stapleton's death, which had been ruled a simple car crash.
But Stapleton had been working on a story.
He'd been investigating an incident where a horse went berserk in the paddock and actually killed a woman. Roke connects the dots. Stapleton wasn't looking for a chemical. He probably suspected the mechanism was about fear, about panic.
So he was killed because he was getting too close to the how, not the who.
That's the chilling conclusion Roke comes to. He's not dealing with fraudsters, he's dealing with murderers. And this confirms his suspicion about the 20,000 pounds.
That it was conscience money.
Yes. He knew then that his infiltration had to be absolutely flawless.
So, time to go undercover. He's working at Lord October's own stable, but he needs a way to get to Humber's. And he needs to arrive with a bad reputation.
Right. He can't just quit and apply for a new job. He needs to be fired, dishonorably. His actual skill as a horseman was a problem. His current boss had called him a quick and conscientious worker. He needed a disgrace, which is where October's daughter, Patricia or Patty, comes in.
Yes, she provides the perfect opportunity. She'd been flirting with him pretty aggressively, being very provocative.
And Roke, by rebuffing her, allows her to claim that he assaulted her.
He takes the fall. He knows that this lie, that he's a violent, dishonest, stable lad fired for misconduct, is the most convincing cover story he can possibly have.
It's a cold, calculated move.
It's ruthless, but essential for the mission.
It's so interesting that right after that, before he goes into the hellhole, as he calls it, he takes a 2-week holiday for himself.
It seems strange, but it was a crucial mental reset. He knew what he was about to walk into. He needed to be at his absolute peak, physically and mentally.
So he goes skiing in the Dolomites.
Yeah, and he consciously sheds the weight of his life in Australia. He describes himself as feeling 27 instead of 50. It was one last taste of freedom before going into deep cover.
And Humber's stable, Posset, is every bit as bad as he expected.
It's an environment designed to make people leave quickly. That's the whole point. The front yard is spotless, for sure.
Flowners, yeah. But behind the scenes, it's squalor. The lads' quarters are tiny and freezing. The work is relentless. 30 horses for only 7 lads, and the food is disgusting.
So the turnover is really high.
Incredibly high. The average lad only lasts 8 to 10 weeks. Humber pays a bit more than other stables, but the misery isn't worth it. And that high turnover is part of the camouflage. No one stays long enough to notice anything strange.
And this is where we see the contrast between the two villains, Humber and Adams.
A huge contrast. Humber is cold, calculating, a miserly tyrant. But Adams is the real danger.
The sources describe him as a psychopath.
Yeah. He's not just in it for the money. He gets a thrill, a sport from breaking people. We see it the first time he meets Roke.
He drops his stick and demands Roke pick it up.
And then slaps him for no reason, just to dominate him, to see if he'll break.
And Roke has to just take it. He has to play the part.
He has to swallow all that pride and act terrified, like a proper little rabbit. It's humiliating for him, but he knows his perceived weakness is his greatest protection. If Adams thinks he's pathetic, he won't see him as a threat.
The danger becomes very real very quickly. A 12th horse shows the same symptoms, and then Roke gets assigned to care for a horse named Mickey.
And Mickey, whose racing name was Starlamp, was one of the original 11 horses. He's just come back from a trip, and he is completely unhinged.
He has these raw patches on his legs.
Mm-hmm. The head lad claims it's from a blister treatment, a common procedure for tendon issues. But the horse is so agitated, Roke has to give him sedatives every day just to manage him.
Phenobarbital.
Soluble phenobarbital. And this daily routine is key because it puts the primary calming agent used on these damaged horses directly into Roke's hands.
So all the pieces are there. He's at the center of the operation. He has the geographic pattern. He has the names. And now he has the agitated horse. The final piece of the puzzle comes from a very unexpected place.
Adam's car. A massive Bentley.
This is the big aha moment.
It's a perfect example of pure observation. Roke is helping clean this ridiculously luxurious car. It has a TV, a drinks cabinet, everything. And in the drinks cabinet, among all the fancy tools, he sees a small tube with a chain.
A silent dog whistle.
A simple dog whistle.
And how does he make the leap from a dog whistle to what's happening to these horses?
Because he'd stopped thinking about chemicals and started thinking about fear. He looked at the symptoms, the staring, rolling eyes, the sweat, and he saw pure, abject terror, not just stimulation.
And he connects the whistle to the patches on Mickey's legs.
He has this incredible insight. He realizes they aren't blisters from a medical treatment, they're burns. Ordinary burns caused by some sort of naked flame.
Wow. So he moves from doping to psychological torture.
That's exactly what it is. The mechanism he deduces is brilliant and absolutely barbaric.
Break it down for us.
They condition the horses to associate the high-frequency sound of that whistle with the visceral terror of being burned by a flamethrower.
My God.
So when an accomplice, positioned near the last fence on one of those long run-in courses, blows the whistle,
the horse isn't just running faster. It's running for its life.
It's a suicidal, panic-driven sprint to escape the fire it thinks is coming. An uncontrollable, maximum effort burst of speed. And because it's based on sound and fear, not a chemical.
It leaves no trace. It would never show up on a test.
Never.
So Roke has the theory. But a theory that, wild, he needs proof.
He needs undeniable proof. He can't go to the stewards and talk about flamethrowers and dog whistles without evidence, so he knows he has to run an experiment.
And this is where Mickey the horse comes in.
Tragically, yes. First, Roke secretly swaps Mickey's sedative with plain water for a few days to get the phenobarbital out of his system.
So the horse is fully alert.
Fully alert. Then he borrows a dog whistle from October's other daughter, Elinor, who he'd met, and he goes to Mickey's stall. And he blows it.
And the reaction.
The notes say it was instantaneous and hideous.
What happened?
The horse just broke. It let out this terrifying scream and thrashed so violently that it snapped its own neck on the tethering chain.
He literally broke his own neck trying to escape the sound.
Yes, it was a horrific, violent end. But it was the proof Roke needed. The conditioning was real and it was absolute.
So he has the proof. He quits his job at Humber's and tries to report everything to the stewards. But the timing is terrible.
It is. Lord October is out of the country. Roke writes up a detailed report, everything, the flamethrower shed, the whistle, the location of Humber's ledger with all the winnings, but he can't get it to the right person in time.
He's trying to reach a Colonel Beckett,
the man who is secretly orchestrating the whole plan from behind the scenes, and while Roke is trying to make contact, the whole thing just catastrophically accelerates.
Because Elinor, October's daughter, shows up at Humber's stable.
She has no idea what she's walking into. She's just there to return the dog whistle she'd lent him, an innocent, polite gesture.
And Adams sees it. He sees her hand the whistle to Roke.
And in that one instant, he knows. Roke is the spy. The game is up. And the confrontation starts immediately. Adams locks the office door and pockets the key.
He doesn't waste any time. He tells Roke that Elinor is already dying.
Yeah, it's beyond cold. He'd dissolved a massive dose of that same phenobarbital into a gin he'd offered her just moments before.
And he lays out his plan.
His whole psychopathic plan. Stage Roke's death in a fiery crash, let Elinor die of an accidental overdose. He's practically bragging about it.
So Roke is trapped. He's exhausted from the stable work. He's under immense stress. And now he's in a locked room facing two men who are planning to kill him.
And they're armed. Humber has a stick. Adams has a broken chair leg. Roke knows he can't win a straight fight.
But he had his crash helmet with him.
Thank God. He had the foresight to be wearing it, and it absorbs the first few blows that were aimed at his skull. He knew he had to use chaos. He just throws himself at Humber first.
Which gives him an opening.
A tiny one. As he slams Humber into some filing cabinets, he sees a heavy green glass paperweight on the desk. The sources say it was the size of a cricket ball.
An improvised weapon.
His only weapon. He grabs it. He throws it at Humber and knocks him out cold. Adams is enraged, hits him again, numbing Roke's arm.
So Roke is injured, but he's not done.
No. He summons every last bit of strength he has, trips Adams, gets the paperweight in his other hand, and strikes him twice on the back of the head.
Killing him.
Instantly. Adams, the mastermind, is dead on the floor. Humber is unconscious, and Roke, dizzy, concussed, has only one thought in his head.
Elinor.
He has to save Elinor.
Which sets off this insane race against time. He's badly injured. His right arm is basically useless. But he gets on his motorcycle and speeds 10 miles to Durham University, where she's a student.
He knew he only had minutes. 20, maybe 30 minutes before the barbiturate poisoning became irreversible. He gets to her college. He's disoriented. He can't find her room. He can't open the door.
So he breaks it down.
He physically kicks the door in, just sheer desperate force.
And he finds her on the bed.
Yeah, sprawled on her bed, already in a deep, deadly sleep. But he's just in time. The noise brings college staff. They call a doctor.
And they give her the antidote. Megamide.
The doctor says if she'd been there much longer, she would have died. Roke, covered in blood and barely conscious himself, had saved her.
But his nightmare isn't over. After all that, the local police show up and arrest him for murder.
It's the ultimate humiliation. The police see his motorcycle, which had been put on a general alert, and they see the scene. For Roke, a man who values his dignity so much, it was torture.
They handcuff him and parade him past all these students.
Yep. And they haul him off to a concrete cell and charge him with homicide.
And they don't believe his story for a second. The cloak and dagger stuff, as they call it.
No, they believe the head lad from the stable, Cass, who paints Roke as this dishonest, slovenly stable lad. To them, it's an open and shut case. A disgruntled employee murdered his boss.
So Roke is at his lowest point. Injured, concussed, and now he's being treated like a common criminal.
And his only defense is that sheer grit that he's had bottled up for 9 years. He just sticks to the facts. Over and over again, he repeats the details. The location of the ledgers, the flamethrower shed, where their fingerprints would be.
He's fighting them not with emotion, but with pure, irrefutable data.
He's using that analytical mind as his last weapon. He says it was like trying to dig a hole in a rock with your fingernails, just chipping away bit by bit.
And it takes 4 nights in that cell before help arrives.
4 excruciating nights. But finally, Colonel Beckett and Lord October intervene.
And once they confirm who he is, the case against him just evaporates.
Completely. Every detail of his story checks out. They find the flamethrower, the ledger with all the winnings. The doctor confirms the poisoning. The police have to drop the charges.
The killing of Adams is ruled justifiable homicide.
And Roke is finally free. He's done it. He's fulfilled the contract.
So now he can collect his £20,000 and go back to his life in Australia. But that's not what happens, is it?
No. Colonel Beckett, this mysterious figure who is behind the whole thing, has other ideas.
He summons Roke to his office.
And he reveals that Roke's time in that police cell wasn't just bad luck, it was the final test.
A test.
Beckett admits he was conducting a vivisection of Roke's character. He used that period of extreme stress to see what Roke was really made of. His pride, his tenacity, his ability to handle pressure.
So this entire case wasn't just about stopping a doping ring. It was a recruitment mission.
It was an origin story. Beckett was testing him for high-risk intelligence work.
What were the specific things he was looking for?
He wanted to see if Roke could maintain control and stick to the facts even when he was physically and psychologically broken. He noted his persistence, that digging a hole in a rock quality.
But he also noted his weaknesses.
He pointed out that Roke couldn't quite maintain his cover in front of Elinor. He reverted to his more intellectual self. Roke admits it was sexual pride. He wanted to impress someone he saw as a peer.
And Beckett gets right to the heart of Roke's motivation.
He asks him straight up, "Are you really looking forward to going back to the harness of your life in Australia?" And Roke is honest. He says no. He still feels trapped. He craves the challenge he just experienced.
The cage is still waiting for him.
The comfortable cage, yes.
So Beckett offers him a way out, a new path.
A permanent one. A high-level, high-risk job in intelligence. And Roke realizes the real prize wasn't the money. It was the thrill of cracking the case, of outwitting Adams, of saving Elinor.
So he accepts.
He trades the security of wealth for the freedom of purpose. He chooses the new, unpredictable life.
And as he accepts, Beckett makes this one last cryptic reference to his psychological evaluation of Roke.
Yeah, he's on the phone with a colleague, running down the checklist, and he says, "Number 10, the 3 Bs.
And Roke is curious enough to ask what that means.
Which is exactly what Beckett expected. And he tells him what they're not. They're not the usual things you vet spies for: blackmail, bribes, or booze.
It's something much more complex about who Roke is.
Exactly. Something deeper about his moral wiring, suggesting his suitability for this new life is based on qualities far more nuanced than just being clean.
Wow. What a story. So this whole deep dive, it boils down to the fact that the answer to an impossible chemical problem was actually found in human behavior, in geography.
And psychological terror. The doping was fear of fire, not a drug in a syringe. And the entire investigation became the most elaborate job interview imaginable.
Turning a successful but deeply unfulfilled man into an international operative.
It's fascinating. It really shows that the line between being a highly skilled person and an effective undercover operative can be much thinner than you think. Roke just had to be brilliant, unhappy, and incredibly tough.
It really makes you wonder about that last point, about the 3 Bs. If Roke's unique profile was what they needed, what kind of challenges is he going to face next? And what are the real limits of this new, dangerous freedom he's just won for himself?